Every other animal that survived among the great predators had something: speed to outrun them, size to overpower them, claws, fangs, armor, horns, venom, a shell to hide inside. Something humans had none of it. We are, physically, one of the most defenseless large animals ever to walk the earth. Soft-skinned, slow, weak compared to the big cats, with no natural weapon on our bodies at all. And yet, we didn't just survive alongside the deadliest hunters in history, we outlasted them. Most of those giant predators are extinct now. We are still here, so what did we have that they didn't? What invisible weapon let the softest animal in the whole landscape outlive the fiercest? Stay with me, because the answer wasn't in our bodies at all. And once you see it, you'll understand what human beings really are. Let's begin with the honest, humbling truth of our situation, because you have to feel how bad it was to understand how astonishing the escape was. Drop a lone human into the ancient wild, in daylight, out in the open, and by every measure that matters in nature, that human is prey. A lion is faster, stronger, and armed with everything you lack. A bear could end you with a single swipe. A pack of hunting animals could run you down and surround you before you understood what was happening. You cannot outrun them. You cannot outmuscle them. You cannot outmuscle them. You cannot outarmor them. In a straight physical contest, a human loses to almost every serious predator in the ancient world. That was the reality our ancestors woke up to every single day. Not the safety of the modern world, where the dangerous animals are behind fences and far away, but a world where stepping out into the open meant stepping into a landscape that saw you as a meal, and the predators of that world were not the animals we know today. They were bigger, and there were more of them. Great cats larger than any lion alive now, bears of enormous size, packs of powerful hunting animals that coordinated their attacks, hyenas built to run prey down and crush bone. This was a world absolutely dense with things that killed for a living, and many of them would happily kill a human. And we came into that world with a body that seems almost designed to lose. We can't run fast. A human sprint is a joke to a big cat. We can't fight with our bodies. No claws, no dangerous bite, limbs that snap where predators would hold. We have soft, thin skin that tears easily. We're born so helpless that our young need years of protection. On paper, a species this defenseless, in a world this dangerous, should have been wiped out. It should be a brief, sad footnote in the history of life. The soft animal that didn't make it. Instead, we're the ones telling the story, and the giant predators are the footnote. That is the mystery we have to solve. So if we couldn't win with our bodies, we had to win somewhere else. And the first place we won was with something you're using right now without even thinking about it. Your senses, your attention. The simple, life-saving act of seeing the danger before it saw you. Because here is a truth about predators that changes everything. An ambush hunter's entire strategy depends on surprise. The lion in the grass, the big cat that drops from above, their whole method is to get close, unseen, and strike before the prey can react. Take away the surprise, and you take away most of their power. A predator that has been spotted, that knows its prey is watching it, will very often simply give up. The hunt is off. And this is the first thing our ancestors were brilliant at, not fighting predators. But noticing them early before the trap could close. They became masters of watching the world. They learned to read the landscape for danger the way you read a page. The flick of a bird bursting from cover, the sudden silence of the insects, the alarm calls of other animals, the print in the mud, the smell on the wind. They stayed alert in the open in a way we can barely imagine today, because their lives depended on it. And crucially, they watched together. A group moving across dangerous ground had many pairs of eyes, many directions covered at once. While some looked ahead, others watched the flanks, the rear, the tall grass. In a group, someone was always likely to catch the danger early, and one person spotting the threat meant the whole group knew in an instant. That shared vigilance, that web of watching eyes, turned a band of soft, slow humans into something very hard to ambush. And an ambush hunter that cannot ambush has already half lost. Picture how finely tuned that watching became. A group crosses open ground, and to an outside eye they're just walking. But they're reading everything. A flock of birds lifts suddenly off a distant tree, and heads turn. Something moved over there. The steady chirp of insects in the grass ahead goes quiet, and a hunter's eyes narrow, because silence means something large has gone still and waiting. A troop of monkeys in the trees breaks into alarm calls, and the humans below understand the message perfectly. A predator is near, and the monkeys are pointing right at it. They read the mud for fresh tracks, Judge how recent by how sharp the edges are. They catch a scent on the wind and know a kill lies somewhere upwind, which means scavengers, which means danger. Tow them. The landscape was not scenery. It was a constant stream of information about what wanted to eat them and where it was. And because they could read it, the ambush that depended on catching them unaware very often failed before it began. The lion in the grass would rise to find the humans already watching it, already turned toward it, already too alert to rush, and the hunt would quietly fall apart. And if this is already reframing how you think about survival, if you're seeing that our first weapon against the predators was simply paying attention together, then do me one favor. Tap that subscribe button right now. This channel is for people who want the real story of where we came from, not the cartoon version. The people who want to understand how a defenseless animal outsmarted a world of monsters. You belong here. Now stay with me, because spotting the danger is only the first move. Because sometimes the predator is already there, already close, already deciding whether to attack. And in that moment, what you do next is everything. And almost everyone gets it wrong. Here is the instinct that would kill you. Run. When something terrifying appears, every fiber of your body screams at you to flee. And in the ancient world, obeying that instinct was often a death sentence. Because running is what prey does. Running triggers the chase. A predator's hunting instinct is wired to the sight of something fleeing. The fleeing shape asterisk is asterisk the signal that says prey, chase, catch. The moment you turn and run from a big cat, you have told it exactly what you are, and you have started a race you cannot win. Nothing a human does makes them faster than an animal built to run down fleeing prey. So our ancestors learned to do the hardest thing imaginable, to override that screaming instinct and stand their ground, to turn and face the thing that wanted to eat them. Think about the courage in that every nerve in your body demanding flight and choosing instead to hold, to plant your feet, to look the predator in the eyes. But it worked because it broke the script. A creature that stands and faces you is not behaving like prey. It is behaving like a threat. And a predator, for all its power, is a careful animal. It cannot afford to get injured. In the wild, an injury means a slow death by starvation. So a predator weighs every attack. Is this worth the risk? A fleeing animal is a safe, easy meal, but something that stands and faces you and refuses to flee. That is an unknown. That might fight. That might hurt you. And very often, that hesitation, that flicker of doubt in the predator's mind, was the gap our ancestors survived in. Live inside one of those standoffs for a moment, because it is where the courage becomes real. A big cat has risen from the grass, close, its shoulders low, its eyes locked on you. Your heart is slamming. Every animal instinct you own is shrieking the single word asterisk, run asterisk. Your legs are begging to move. And you know, in that instant, that to obey them is to die, because the moment your back turns, the chase begins and it ends with you. So instead you do the impossible thing. You stop, you straighten up to your full height. You turn and face it, and you make yourself as large and as loud and as certain as you can. You meet its eyes and you do not look away. Inside, you are terrified. But what the cat sees is something that will not break, something that is looking back at it with intent, something that does not behave like anything it hunts. And you watch the calculation move behind its eyes, the ancient math of the predator weighing a meal against an injury it cannot afford. That frozen moment, two animals staring across a few feet of grass, was one our ancestors faced and won countless times, not with strength, but with the sheer nerve to override the oldest instinct they had. But a single human standing their ground can only do so much. The real magic came when they did it asterisk together asterisk and turned themselves into something no predator wanted to face. Because, this is the heart of it, alone, a human is a weak animal. But humans were almost never truly alone, and a group of humans acting as one is a completely different creature. When the danger came, they didn't scatter, every person for themselves, because a scattered group is just a buffet, pre-picked off one by one. Instead, they came together. They bunched into a tight mass, shoulder to shoulder, turning many weak individuals into one large, united front. And then they made themselves impossible to read as prey. They stood tall. They raised their arms to look bigger. They shouted, roared, made themselves loud and violent and wrong. They waved branches, threw stones, stamped and advanced. To a predator, this was baffling and alarming, not a fleeing meal, but a big, loud, aggressive thing that was coming asterisk toward asterisk it, refusing to break. Most predators, faced with that, do the smart thing. They leave. They go find easier prey, the antelope that runs, not the strange loud animal that stands and advances in a mass. Our ancestors had learned to win the fight without even having it, by looking like far more trouble than any meal was worth. And this is the deepest reason the group mattered so much. It didn't just add strength. It changed what the predator asterisk saw. Asterisk, a predator's whole world is a calculation of prey. This shape runs. That shape is weak. This one is a safe meal. A lone human fits the weak, catchable category almost perfectly. But a tight knot of humans, standing together, moving together, making noise together, fits no category the predator has. It doesn't read as a herd of prey, because prey scatters and flees. It reads as a single large, aggressive, unpredictable thing. And predators are deeply cautious of anything they can't categorize, because the unknown is where injury and death hide. So the group didn't just make the humans harder to kill, it made them harder to even understand as food. And there is something else the group did that no lone animal could. It could afford to be brave. A single creature that stands its ground risks everything on that one gamble. But in a group, the humans backed each other, one stepping forward, emboldened the next. The shouts fed on each other. The courage multiplied. A frightened individual might break and run. Ager group holding together, each drawing nerve from the others, could stand firm against an animal that could have killed any one of them alone. Togetherness turned fear into resolve. But sometimes bluff wasn't enough. Sometimes the predator came anyway, and this is where humans unveiled the weapon that changed everything. The thing that truly separated us from every other prey animal in history. We learned to hurt them from a distance. Think about what a revolution this was. Every other prey animal can only defend itself up close. A kick, a horn, teeth, and only when the predator is already on top of it, already in striking range. But humans did something no prey had ever done. We learned to reach out and strike a predator from asterisk, beyond asterisk, the reach of its claws and fangs. It started with the simplest thing, a thrown rock. A well-aimed stone, hurled hard, could hurt an animal, could drive it back, could injure an eye, from a safe distance, without the predator ever getting close enough to touch you. And humans, it turns out, are astonishingly good at throwing. Our bodies are practically built for it, in a way almost no other animal is. A group pelting a predator with a hail of stones was a genuine threat, able to wound from range, from safety. In numbers. And that throwing ability is stranger and more important than it sounds. Watch a chimpanzee, our close relative, try to throw something. It is clumsy, weak, wildly inaccurate. Now watch a human. We can hurl an object hard and place it exactly where we aim, and we can do it again and again. Our shoulders, our wrists, the whole architecture of our upper bodies seems shaped for this one act of throwing with power and precision. No other creature on Earth can do it the way we can. And think about what that unlocked, the ability to deliver force at a distance. For every other animal, attack means closing the gap, getting within reach of teeth and claws, which for a soft human is exactly where death lives. But a thrown stone, let a human hurt something without ever entering its reach. A predator pacing at the edge, looking for an opening, could suddenly be met with a rock to the skull from 10 paces away. Then another, from a whole group at once. It changed what a human was. Not a cornered animal waiting to be reached, but something that could reach asterisk out asterisk and strike first. From safety. It was the first taste of a power that would define our entire species, hurting what we feared before it could hurt us. And then came the spear, and the balance of power broke wide open. A sharpened point on the end of a long shaft meant a human could stab a charging predator before it ever reached them. Could stand behind a wall of points that a lion physically could not get through without being impaled. Now, imagine being that predator. You charge what looks like soft prey, and you run into a bristling line of sharp points held by a loud, coordinated group that stands its ground and drives them at you. Every instinct you have says, asterisk, this is how I get killed. Asterisk, the spear didn't just help humans defend themselves. It flipped the entire equation. For the first time, the prey could kill the hunter. Reliably, from a distance, in a way the hunter could not counter. A soft animal with a sharp stick had become deadlier than teeth and claws. And that leads to the most staggering turn in this entire story. Because once humans could hurt predators from a distance, and do it together, they stopped only defending and started attacking. The prey became the hunter. This is the great reversal, and there is nothing else like it in the history of life. For millions of years, humans and their ancestors had been the hunted, watching the horizon, fleeing, hiding, losing their kind to the great cats and bears. And then, slowly, the tables turned completely. Humans began to hunt the very predators that had hunted them. They tracked lions to their dens. They cornered bears. They used their tools, their teamwork, their patience, and their intelligence to take down the fiercest animals in the landscape. not out of hunger alone, but to remove the threat, to take the territory, to make the world safer for their own kind. No prey animal had ever done this. Antelope do not hunt lions, but humans did. Picture what that hunt looked like, because it is the moment our place in the world inverted. A predator has been taking members of the group, a child here, a straggler there. In the old world, that would simply be born, a grief absorbed, the survivors moving on and staying afraid. But not with humans. The hunters read its tracks, and they follow. Patiently for hours, for a day, using the same landscape reading that once only kept them alive, but now turned outward offensively into a tool for finding the hunter. They locate where it rests, and then they come together, in daylight, on their terms. Not fleeing it, but seeking it. A coordinated group with spears and stones and a plan, cornering the thing that used to be the most terrifying force in their world. The predator, for the first time, is the one that is outnumbered, outsmarted, and out of options. It faces something it has no instinct for, prey that hunts back. That scene, repeated across the ages, is the sound of the food chain breaking. The animals that had ruled the land for millions of years suddenly had a new thing to fear, and it was us. We turn our minds, the same minds that spotted the ambush, that stood their ground, that invented the spear, into a weapon of offense, and we pointed it straight at the things that used to eat us. And the predators, who had ruled the land for millions of years, met something they had no answer for. Many of those great predators are gone now, extinct, and the soft, clawless animal they once hunted inherited the earth. And notice the pattern in how we did it, because it is the same pattern every single time. See the danger first, that is intelligence. Stand together and don't break, that is cooperation. Strike from a distance, that is tools. In every layer of this story, the winning move was never a better body. It was a better mind shared across a group and made real through something held in the hand. Those three things, intelligence, cooperation, and tools, are the whole secret. And they're the same three things that would go on to build everything else humans ever made. The defense against predators wasn't just how we survived. It was the first proving ground for the exact abilities that would eventually take us to the top of every food chain on the planet. So let's finally answer the question we started with. How did ancient humans survive predators? Not with claws, because we had none. Not with speed, because we were slow. Not with size or armor or fangs. We survived because of the one weapon that isn't in the body at all. The human mind, working through the human group. We survived by seeing danger first, together, by overriding our own terror and standing our ground, when running meant death. By turning a crowd of weak individuals into one large, terrifying front. By inventing a way to strike from a distance beyond the reach of claws. And finally, by taking all of that and turning it around, becoming the hunters of our own hunters. Every single one of those is a product of intelligence and cooperation, not muscle. Or weapon was never our body, it was our brain and each other. And now, let's kill the myth, the one that pictures the ancient human as a trembling victim, cowering from every shadow, barely surviving in a world of monsters. The truth is the exact opposite. Our ancestors were not the losers of the ancient world. They were the ones who cracked it, who looked at a landscape full of things stronger, faster, and deadlier than themselves, and found a way not just to survive it, but to master it. They didn't survive predators by becoming tougher animals. They survived by becoming smarter ones, by outthinking the food chain itself, and then climbing straight to the top of it. The lion has its claws. The bear has its strength. We had something that beat them both, a mind that could plan, a group that could act as one, and hands that could make a weapon. And it turned out that was the most dangerous thing the natural world had ever produced. So the next time you feel small, or soft, or outmatched by something bigger than you, remember what you actually are. You are the descendant of the animal that had no natural weapons and won anyway. That stood its ground against lions with nothing but sharp sticks and sheer nerve. That was born as prey and refused to stay that way. That exact mind. The one that spots the danger, that solves the impossible problem, that faces down the thing it cannot possibly beat and finds a way through, is sitting inside your skull right now. It carried your ancestors from the bottom of the food chain to the top, and it is still, to this day, the most remarkable weapon that life on this planet has ever produced. But surviving the predators outside was only half the battle, because as humans conquered the dangers of the open world, they began to face a new and stranger kind of threat, one that didn't come from the teeth of animals, but from other humans. So what happened when the greatest danger to a human being became another human being? That is the story we open next.